journey, or rather my educational journey. So I was very bright in school because school became my escape. It became the place where I got to see the alternative outside of what I saw every day in my community, and I think that's also where I got to see that I'm a little bit different. Some kids get dropped off in nice cars. I'm getting dropped off in a raggedy transport or taxi. My dad is a taxi driver. So you start to see the differences and the disparities as well, as a young person that don't make sense. And that additionally became something, yes, that did eat at my confidence and make me ask questions about my existence. That why is it that I have to go back to a community like mine when other people go back to beautiful homes with trees and birds? So that experience for me really has fueled the dreamer me as a young person. Education became my fallback. Reading, going into books became, my interest and my way of not only escaping my reality, but determining my future, because that's where I got a reference of a different life that I could live, that I could create and build for myself. And right up to high school, there was actually an article that I had read that had said, if you want to change the world, study politics. And that's what actually informed what I went on to study in university. So, going to the question on my educational background. So, I was quite literal with that article. I was like, I want to change the world. I want to change my community. So, I'm going to study politics. So, true to form, in matric, I registered for a Bachelor of Arts, majoring in politics and international relations at Wits University. I did want to go to UCT because I was like, I'm going to only the best. I know you are a UCT alumni, so yeah. But
You know what they
unfortunately,
say? Sorry to interject. You know what they say? They say you'll always know that somebody's from UCT. How do you know that somebody's from UCT? They will tell you. That's how it is. So we
yes.
always kind of say, I went to
Yeah.
UCT. I mean, it was years ago. But anyway, sorry to interrupt.
Not a problem at all. It's something definitely to be proud of, So, unfortunately, I couldn't afford, or my family couldn't afford UCT because it was, the accommodation, the travel costs, and all of that. And so Wits became the option that made sense. So I studied a Bachelor of Arts, majored in politics and international relations, and then I went on to do my honors in development studies. And then I actually went on to register for a master's in international relations, which I later then had to because I made other decisions in my life that I believe we'll get into later in the conversation that then steered me a different direction. But basically, that's where my early educational background started. Then recently,
Yeah.
okay, sorry. Okay, I thought somebody was speaking. So recently, yes, I completed my MBA at Wits Business School. So yeah, I kept all my
Touche, touche, touche. Congratulations, Boipelo. I mean, it's a big deal, and we are going to talk about that because for me, a vet's MBA, and the other institution somewhere in Swane, I mean, that's a huge, huge thing. UCT as well. These are huge achievements, people, and I want to stress the importance of that, and we will get into the MBA thing. So I want to stress that.
Yes. Yeah, so basically that's my educational background on the more formal side. And in between, I have dabbled and done a number of, certificates, certifications, and courses, free and paid, as part of my ongoing career development.
Boipelo, I was just a few minutes ago on another social network, and I was talking about the value of these papers, the
Mm.
certificates, the degrees, you know, um, going the extra mile and sacrificing. I mean, you and I know how much you've had to sacrifice to just get that paper written MBA. One of my other guys that I mentor, he went to the States and he paid a heck of a lot of money. to be, to get an MBA as well. I think it was an MBA. And so for me, I'm thinking to myself, there's a price that has to be paid for all of the stuff. What are your thoughts around the price that you've had to pay to get to where you are, and without going too deep, so that we can revisit some of it?
Yeah. So everything valuable comes at a cost. I think in life we can appreciate that in different, areas and different circumstances. And for me, I realized that my education was important to me, and that's the place that I had to present and be ready and willing to sacrifice, right? The sacrifice is not only financial, it's time, it's focus, it's your energy, it's how you select your relationships, how you choose to spend your time. So a lot of that and a lot of my younger years was spent as the boring girl who had potential to do so much more and so many other things, but that is according to what society boxes you as, right? And there were many boxes that I was put into based on my background, based on how I looked, based on who I was raised by, and everybody has an opinion about what you should and shouldn't be doing. So that is the sacrifice. And as you go along life, I remember even thinking to myself during my MBA that I self-funded, I was like, why am I still worried about school fees at this point in my life? It felt like the same feeling I had when I was leaving high school, going into university, to be like, who's going to pay for my fees? And 10 years later, I'm asking myself the same question. But the moment I began to truly appreciate that this is the continued sacrifice that comes with its returns, I was okay with it and I embraced it. So it's really about understanding what are you willing to sacrifice, fully grappling with it, because as mentioned, it's not just financial, it's everything else that encompasses your life as a person, your ambitions. And remember, there's something that you are letting go of to pursue something else. So it was also a lot of those small decisions in between that don't get talked about, don't get appreciated because we're always focusing on the big thing. So yeah, it's a critical part of being intentional with growth, being intentional with how far you want to go with your life. Sometimes you have to, in my language, thema yourself nice things for a short period to be able to achieve, the bigger picture, where then you will get to enjoy yourself and enjoy your time, your people, and everything else that doesn't require so much sacrifice.
I love that Timaring issue. I think your MBA journey deserves an episode of its own. Um, because that we could go deeper there. It will really depend on how far we go. So yeah, thanks for the insights, Boipelo. I think we are learning quite a bit about how to climb the corporate ladder. So let's go back a bit, right? What was your first job? How did you land that gig? And how did it fare, really?
Okay. I'm like, how far do I go back? So my first job was actually a casual job when I was still a student, early in my second year. And yeah, on campus there'll be people promoting, requiring promoters, and looking for students to basically fill in on weekends. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't want to be a promoter on campus. It just looks so uncool. So even within that, one can think, here's this young girl from Alex who is being choosy about the job that she wants to do because she doesn't want to stand in the sun all day or be in a mascot outfit that is, heating her up. And I remember I would go to the postgrad. There was an office on campus that would advertise jobs for students, and I lived in that office. Whatever societies that were available advertising jobs outside of the university, I was always there trying to get the information, which is another critical part of, the journey that I think even as we grow, as we become adults, we forget that it's okay to ask for information. It's okay to research. It's okay to, knock on doors and ask questions, which is a big part of my career advancement and growth, that we sit on things or we sit with questions and wondering if I can do this or, I'd like to do that, but we don't take the step of just picking up a call. We have access to so much information online now. Find out, make the call, write the email. So eventually I found a poster that was looking for in-store promoters at Apple. So my first formal job actually I became a promoter or a casual for the core group, which is the division of Apple in South Africa. So I was that girl in Incredible Connection stores. I remember it was in Rosebank, basically telling people about the Apple brand and why they should get an iPhone. So that was my first job. And I think I was getting paid, yeah, a couple of rands per hour. So you can imagine. It wasn't more than 30 rands an hour. So yeah, that was my first casual job as a student. And then eventually, um, getting active on campus, you will have like the media houses coming onto campus, recording vox pops of students. And I was always that girl ready to give her opinion and her thoughts. So Soweto TV was one of the media houses that would do that. And eventually I became their go-to person, that when they arrived, they literally just called me to be like, hey, Boipelo, we're on campus. Come give us your thoughts on this, whatever trending topic was happening at the time. To a point where I developed a relationship with the producer of the segment of that show. And then I became a resident commentator. And then eventually I was like, look, I'm studying politics. Let me be your political analyst. I knew nothing about party politics or what was happening from, an external perspective. I knew politics from a theory perspective as a student, but I was like, look, I'm going to bet on myself, and whatever I need to read, I'll read, but I know the political theory. I'm a vid student. I can give you thoughts and insights. And then I eventually became the resident political analyst at Soweto TV. But please note, I was not getting paid. I worked for about 2.5 years unpaid, going
Oh,
to studio.
wow.
Yeah. So they would fetch me from campus. So that was the agreement we had, because I was a student. I didn't have money all the time. So they would fetch me from campus, would go to studio, would shoot the show. And then that's basically how I started kind of getting my work experience, until one day the station was looking for an English newsreader. They had auditions, and then of course I auditioned and I got the job. So that became my first well-paying job, where I had now a monthly salary and, paying tax, doing my thing. So I was basically a student, a full-time student, and I was also a newsreader on Soweto TV.
Boipelo, I think, um, yeah, that's why I just wanted to be quiet and silent and just take it all in, you know, because two things are picked up from this and maybe more, minimum. One, be curious. Um, I think for me, what you've said really speaks to the issue of career curiosity. How curious are you in terms of how far you can go, what is possible, and what you can do? And I've
Yeah,
come to realize that sometimes because we don't knock on a lot of doors, the magical side of our life doesn't really show up, you know?
yeah,
Um, you could use your background as an example to say, no, I grew up in Alex, no doors are going to open. But if you use what your mama gave you, and you go out there and you say, listen, this is what I can offer you. I mean, I'm shocked that you were actually not getting paid for the political commentary, because I used to watch you on Soweto TV and think to myself, girl is getting paid, you know, she is making a killing, you know. But
yeah,
what I'm seeing is progressive growth. How
yeah.
important is progress and progressive growth in Boipelo's journey?
It's the bedrock of my entire career experience. There were moments where I had to realize what it is I wanted out of the journey and the experience. So case in point, me volunteering at Soweto TV, it was already a big deal for me that I got to be on screen because and do something that I was studying for. At the time, the questions that my peers would ask me was, oh, they want to be on TV. Like, I'm so lucky. How did I get that? Like, and I'm like, that's the thing. You put yourself out there and then you make the sacrifice to get to the other side. The sacrifice I had to make in that moment was, okay, I'm not getting paid, but I'm going to show up like I'm getting paid. I'm going to show up and do the work and do the job as if I am the senior political analyst that every, media house in the country wants to talk to and wants to interview. So in that moment for me, it was, look, I didn't even expect or think that in a couple of years from that time, I would eventually get employed as a newsreader. For me, it was something at the time that I was doing as part of building my experience, using my knowledge that I was gaining, because that's what I had. I had the knowledge, my textbook knowledge. I could read on the news and form an opinion. And that's what I had. I didn't have money, I didn't have connections, I didn't have I didn't magically get a casting agent who gave me the job. And I think that's the state of mind or the mindset most people approach life and opportunities with, to say, oh, I need to have these things in place. And it's like, no, use what you have. Start with what you have. That will lead you to the next thing. And true to form, that's what opened the opportunity for me to now get the paying newsreading job. One can argue that, oh, but now I was already within the system. No, for me, it was, I spent that 2 years unpaid building my camera confidence, building my ability to speak, to, understand what it looks like behind the scenes of a production. And that's actually the knowledge and the experience that then helped me to be a better newsreader on screen. Another portion I didn't mention was during that time, I also walked into the Alex FM studios in Alex and offered myself as a newsreader. So that helped me to create or build my news reading voice and confidence. And again, even then, I wasn't getting paid. But for me, it was about, look, I can put my hand up to do something. I have the time, I have the energy as a young person. So I'll come and work for free. And that experience is what prepared me to then be a paid newsreader in my next opportunity.
Oh, Boipelo, as you're speaking, I'm thinking about the idea of the value of creating some sort of hype around your identity and your personality and being visible, basically, from what you are saying. There's value in visibility, and I think that's one thing I'm realizing with you, that you showed up. You
Mm.
went to all these places and you knocked, and the worst would be, no, we don't have space for you. But you
Yeah.
went to LXFM, went to Soweto TV and everything. And now comes this issue with marketing, Boipelo and marketing. Now from political commentator to Boipelo is now marketing. And we know that Boipelo has been like a glamour girl, right? But can you connect those dots? Now,
Yeah.
the beauty element of it, the marketing element of it, the modeling element of it. How did that build up now to sales, marketing, showing
Mm.
up, Instagram? Can
Yeah.
you fuse all that for us?
Yeah. Definitely. So the word to best describe that for me is evolution. We all start out with an idea of what we want to do, what we want to have, and that can be seasonal. I think at my bigger age now, I understand that you never really want to do the same thing in your life. What you thought or wanted to be at 16 is different from what you want to be at 20 versus when you're 30. So for me, in my exposing myself to things, so I just did everything and anything I thought I was passionate about in the moment. So I went into Wits thinking to myself, I'm going to do politics because I want to change the world. How I wanted to change the world, I had no idea, but I just had the headline that this is who I want to be in the world. Then, with every experience and every small decision you make, the journey leads you closer to where you want to be. Because, and I always tell young people that I mentor that do everything when you can, because by doing, you will get to a place where you actually realize, I like this, or I don't enjoy this, or I really am more passionate about this, rather than waiting and saying, I studied accounting, so I'm waiting for a CA type job or an accounting specialist job, whatever, a job in finance, right? If an opportunity comes for you to go sweep someone's door, do it. If an opportunity comes for you to drive someone around, do it, because you don't know what about that journey that's going to be character building, that's going to expose you to things that you would otherwise not be exposed to sitting at home or sitting in your corner will lead you to. So for me, it really was that where I evolved into every season, every step, every role in my life. So from the news, from there, I was like, I want to be on BBC. That became now my goal after the experience with media. And I was like, I want a production company. I want to communicate more to people. Highlight, communicate. Communication became then my bedrock of the things that I was doing. So I identified myself as a communicator. Then go into now my modeling and the pageantry experience. That for me came mainly from also again the explorative nature of, hey, this is something I think I might be good at, I might be interested in. Why not give it a shot and try? Let me go apply. I remember signing up for my first modeling agency. Again, it was a poster I saw on campus. And I took it home, showed my parents, and I was like, hey, I want to be a model now. And my dad was not having it. He was just like, not a chance. You need to focus on your books, you need to focus on your school. And I was like, but I am focusing on my books and my school, but I want to do this as well. So it was it's something that I also had to socialize my parents into understanding and into, fully supporting, especially my dad. My mom had always been a pageant girl, entering me into pageants from a young age. And that in itself, again, now I had to demonstrate why I could do this. And I think many of us with, the backgrounds that we come from, our parents knew the key careers where you're going to make money. You become a doctor, you become a teacher, you become, an engineer, an accountant. And, those are the jobs that give you money. So when you're talking media and modeling, nobody understands. So it's also, again, your responsibility to educate your sponsors being the people who are supporting you along the journey. And early on and in your life, it's usually your family first and the people who have immediate access to you. So moving from media into now my corporate career was one of those moments of evolution that again were, under the key moment for me, or the key element, was the communication part. I entered Miss South Africa during my master's year. So I did mention the master's that I had registered for and did 50% of in 2017. And then that's when I entered Miss South Africa. I entered Miss South Africa again as something I was taking a chance at. I actually didn't think I was going to make it far, and that's the truth. Um, and that was the year I was still doing my master's. So in my mind, I'm like, cool, I'm going to give myself this year to give it a try, go test the waters, finish my master's, then I'll go back again the following year. But then I kept on progressing and I became a runner up. And that completely changed a lot of my trajectory, my experience. At the time, Celsi was one of the main sponsors. And after the pageant, there was an opportunity to join Celsi as an intern. So I was like, okay, I've got my news media work going on the side, but here's an opportunity that I'm curious about that I'm going to explore. So I spoke to the channel and I said, look, there's a 12-month internship at Cell C that I want to explore. Can I please go and explore it and I'll come back? And they were like, gladly, you can come back after 12 months. 5 years later, I was still at Cell C. But when I joined Cell C, I joined the corporate communications function. And it became quite a natural transition for me from an experience point of view because I knew the media. So now I was on the other side of it and I was able to communicate with the media. But even in that experience of being now an external communications consultant, I began to realize that as much as, yes, I'm pretty good at this, I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy now chasing media to publish my articles. I don't enjoy, the writing part, but I needed to be in the moment, in the experience to understand that about myself. This was a conversation I continued having with my manager at the time. And I was doing social media in my personal capacity. I would post. And for me, it was more just a fun thing to do. That's when Facebook was introduced and we were posting everything and anything you could find, making friends online before the social media hype and the influencer industry even existed when social media was still for social and socializing and connecting with your people. um but even through that experience, I started saying to my manager was like, you seem to be good at this and you seem to be enjoying that. Would you want to explore digital marketing? And then that's when I started spending more time with the marketing team within the business, to a point where we actually then built a whole new team for the business that previously didn't exist to fulfill where the company was going at the time. So even when I speak about my 5 years at Cell C, I always say that it was 5 years and I was promoted 3 times. I started as an intern, but I left as a manager, running my own function within the corporate affairs team in the business. But that came as a result of progressive growth, experience, trial and error, and eventually saying, cool, this is actually what I am passionate about and what I'm going to pursue. So again, it also comes with calculated decision making and calculated risks. Because I know some people can argue to say that, look, I can't afford to move around in this job, or I can't afford to, try something new. Trying something new doesn't have to be drastic. You could still do your day-to-day job and then find something to do 5% with your time within the business that contributes to another team or to another goal or KPI that is important for the business or even the function that you're in. So it's really about that, going back to your point, coach, that stay curious. You never reach a point where you can know everything or you can be as accomplished as you think. There's no ceiling to accomplishment or achievement. My last point on this was actually today, one of my colleagues in the office asked me a very interesting question. And she was like, Boipelo, do you ever feel or think that you could lose your job or be without a job? Uh, for someone like you, as educated as you are. And I'm like, all the time. I'm like, I'm still on probation right now, I could not make it after my probation period. And I think what was quite interesting about that question and what helped me also reflect on was that you never sit on your laurels, you never stay comfortable, because while I think, oh, I've got an MBA now and I can go into whatever role I want, there's someone else who's got 5 MBAs or has an MBA from Harvard and is doing 5 projects at a time and doing so much more. So you never reach a point where you feel like you know it all, you have it all, or you've accomplished it all. Always find small spaces and pockets where you can continue to grow yourself and continue to make sure that you become indispensable, that you can confidently say that, yeah, no, I'm indispensable. As much as I can think it, that's not how I show up. I show up to my job and my days and the things that I do as if this is the last time I might get to do it. I want to make sure that when I leave, whoever was there, whoever I'm engaging with, has the sentiment of, wow, I can't afford to lose this person. But that requires me to, number one, not be comfortable just because I've accomplished certain things, to continue to grow myself because that's what life is about.
Boipelo. That to me is really something that's worth taking home. And I think somebody wrote there that agility is another name for Boipelo, you know. And I think just checking out your story with all the stuff that you've done, it's been a journey of agility and but focused agility, you know. We live in a VUCA world. We all know that we live in a very fragile, you know, world that is absolutely changing all the time. The social dynamics are changing. The world of work is changing, you know.
Yeah.
And so, Boipelo, in terms of your career journey, mentorship, sponsorship, you use the word sponsorship somewhere. Who who has been part of this career journey, brought inspiration, brought wisdom, who have been Bipilo's role models or mentors or sponsors?
Yeah. So usually when I answer that question, I'm like, it's hard to put names, right? I mean, because I have a long list of names, but the key thing I always highlight is that the people in your life already have knowledge and experiences and wisdom that can really help you in your life. For me, it started at home with my parents. One, as much as my parents were not or didn't get the opportunity to get as educated as I am or to go through, the experiences I got to go through, the exposure that I got, there are still humans who have lived on this earth longer than I have. So one, it's understanding that just because something or someone does not look shiny on the outside doesn't mean they don't have value to offer you that can take you far. So for me, it genuinely started at home. And one of the stories I'll actually share with you is that I remember my dad being a taxi driver. So at times he would fetch me at school with his raggedy taxi, and the kids at school would laugh at me. And it started getting to me because they were getting dropped off in nice cars. And I remember I started asking him to wait at the corner, not at the school gate, and I'll walk to him so that the kids at school wouldn't see me getting into the car. Then one day he just decided to park right in front of the school gate at peak hour. Now everybody is seeing me go into this taxi. And I was so angry. And I got into the car and I was so angry at my dad. And I was like, why would you do that? You really just embarrassed me. And I was like, why can't you just be like other dads and drive a normal car? And I remember my dad looking over at me and saying that, Boipelo, cool, those kids are laughing at you. When you sit in class, are you guys sitting in the same class? And I'm like, yes. He's like, are you being taught by the same teacher? And I'm like, yes. And he's like, well, the only difference between you and those kids right now is maybe the car and the home that you're going to, but you have every opportunity right now to be great because you are sitting in the same class as those kids. This is what me and your mom could offer you and provide for you. But what you're going to do with this and after that is all on you. What you need to understand is that there's no difference between you and those kids in class. As angry as I was in that moment, that's something that stayed with me. I mean, until today. And I began going into spaces, not only just class, but understanding that if I'm in the room, I have the right to be there. And actually, I can even do better, regardless of, where I come from. So that was my first piece of, background and wisdom, understanding that my first mentorship came from home with the lessons that, yes, we didn't like as young people and young children, the rules of being with your parents, but those were my first grounding rules. The second for me was church. I always say, growing up in Alex as a teen, church was the place that helped me to ground myself and find myself as a young person. I spent a lot of my time in the church. I started serving in church. Actually, most of my major leadership roles and leading with adults was at church, right? Where um, a lot of the time, the dynamic of, especially in corporate, of being a young person and having to lead or manage people who are older than you. And it's like, yo, how do you still address this person by their name, even though they're like 10 years, 20 years older than you? You know, those dynamics that we have as Black professionals sometimes. I got that experience from church where, I was the head usher, had to lead the ushers, and some of the ushers were, mamas and fathers and, people who are older than me. And that's also the environment and experience where I got my leadership experience. And of course, everything that you learn from a spiritual perspective that grounds you, that helps you find yourself, that also helps you know how to cope, right? Because sometimes all you could do really in a situation is pray. So that became, part of that mentorship journey where I also was exposed to leaders and people at church who were also able to not only guide me from a spiritual perspective, but guide me on what other life is out there for me as a young person, growing up in this environment. So a lot of my mentors came from the church environment as well. Still growing up in Alex, still going through the experiences that I've shared with you, and getting that support and the insight, because there are professionals at church who are already in these spaces who can help guide. So whatever professional guidance I could not get necessarily from my parents, I got it from church. As I move through life, then you begin to identify people who naturally will be drawn to you, and then naturally that you will also be drawn to. And the reason why I say I don't mention names, or like names of very well established people, I think that's where people tend to go when you start talking about mentors and people who've guided. I'm like, the people who've guided me and helped me are the simplest. They don't have the biggest titles on LinkedIn. And I think that's what we also tend to do. We want to go on LinkedIn and go find the CEO of the group of, the group company and all of that. And it's like, that person doesn't even have time to spend with their family. What more you? So find people who can actually give value, who you already have access to and you have access to as well. So take a step back, look around you, from home, your family, your social environments, even your church, and really begin to identify who are those people that have or can guide me in an area in my life that I'm not good at, or that I'm looking to grow and improve. Or, I see a leader in one of my social circles who's just really good at talking to people, and I want to learn how to talk to people better. So it's just those small things and moments in your life where you need to be able to identify your mentors as that, because you might be missing out on a great opportunity, on great people who can actually help and support you, because you want the CEO of the World Bank to be your mentor.
The CEO of the World Bank. That is so funny. Yeah. So has Boipelo ever gotten burnt in terms of her career, like dealt with failure? Can you share a story or two of how you dealt with failure in terms of career-wise and maybe academia, academics? Has Boipelo failed, and how did you bounce back? How did you show resilience in the midst of that?
Yeah. So, sure. I felt like a huge failure when I did not complete my first master's. So that was my master's in international relations. And for the longest time, I did not forgive myself for that. Even though, so the reason why I had paused the master's with the intention of going back. That was the year I had entered Miss South Africa, and that was taking up a lot of my time, and it became my new priority. So I paused and continued with the pageant journey. So not completing that master's really broke me. And I genuinely felt like a failure. And it took many years for me to eventually get over it because what had happened was I had received a bursary, then I obviously lost the bursary because now I did not complete the degree in time. So now I had a debt for something I didn't even do. So that made me even more angry that here I am now paying for a master's I never got to do. So definitely, a moment for me that felt like failure, but it later became a character building moment that eventually gave me strength in my MBA journey. From a career perspective, I think I've gone through a lot of hard moments, very difficult moments. It's hard for me to call them failures because I believe that they've helped me grow into the person that I am, right? Nothing and none of the journey is pretty and perfect. Nothing is LinkedIn perfect. I know we're always proud to announce, but before getting to proud to announce on LinkedIn, like it's quite there's a lot that happens in the background. I remember in my early corporate career, I did struggle a lot because here I was, this young girl coming from a pageant who was now trying to be vocal and make decisions in a boardroom, and people don't take you seriously. Then you experience workplace bullying. That's something that I've experienced a great deal. And coming from, because of my background, because of what people think, and for me, I think that's where education and continuously upskilling myself became quite critical because I began to realize that people respect your paper before they respect you. It's like they respect when they read about you first, then only do they want to listen to you. Now I'm no longer just, oh, the beauty queen who potentially has been favored by someone in the business to get where she is. So now I can actually, hold my own. But again, it's unfair because it's like, why am I getting judged on how I look, how I sound, where I come from, when I should be getting judged on what I can deliver and, what I'm actually there to do as a professional? So it's all those dynamics in place, that happen in the background that you just learn to navigate and deal with. In the moments, it genuinely felt like failure. Enter imposter syndrome, where you're like, am I even supposed to be here? Do I even deserve to be here? But then I think back to that conversation with my dad again, that I am there and I'm there for a reason. Doesn't matter, even if I'm coming, from a different angle or different perspective, or may not necessarily have the marketing degrees that my colleagues might have. There's something else that I'm bringing to the fore. So it's the same dynamics that you probably experienced in high school, but just in a professional space with grown people, that can make you feel like a failure. And sometimes a lot of the feedback that I always got from my managers is don't be so hard on yourself. Because for me, if a project doesn't go accordingly, if I don't meet a deadline, I feel like a failure, right? But that's not the true reflection of who you are as a person and who you are as a professional. You take those L's and you keep it moving and you improve the next time. So I think that's how I can sum up, what I would call failures or just moments that really had me feeling like, yeah, I'm not worth the moment, the opportunity, or the room.
So thank you, Boipelo. How important is personal branding? If there's one thing I've noticed about you, it's you are quite intentional about how people view you and what you do. How important is that? And how important is you managing your brand in terms of, and the linkage of that to one's career? I mean, I watch your WhatsApps. I'm not on Instagram, but you're quite popular on Instagram. But there are some apps that you are not on, and is that purposeful? How does that work for you? And I know you're quite strong on LinkedIn as well. Can you take us through that journey of personal branding and its connection to career development?
Yeah. So personal branding is critical. Whether we like it or not, we all have brands. It's not for the famous, it's not for the many followers, it's not for the rich. And I run personal branding master classes every now and then for businesses and SMEs. And one of the things or the examples I always give is that, when you're in the hood and you're going to buy magoenya or you're going to buy ogota, we already know, Hore, there's the particular lady who's Magwenya's nice. Then we know there's another one who's a little bit dirty, so you don't really want to go there, And I'm like, and I always say, and I put up an image of, those people, and I'm like, whatever you use to describe that person is their brand, right? So now you can imagine in our spaces, wherever you are, whatever people say about you when you've left the room or use to describe you is your brand. Are you the person who's always late? Are you the person who's always dressed nicely? Are you the person with great presentations? Those small things are the things that make up your brand, right? And how people think of you is important because that determines how they will engage with you. So if you don't tell your story, we will tell it for you. We will tell you exactly who you are. And in the digital world, that's even worse. You post a picture, we will comment on everything around that picture. You might be posting an outfit, but I might notice that, hey, there's a broken glass in your, kitchen. That's how important or like how deep the notion of personal branding, especially in the digital world that we live in, is. So I only got to understand that I've been personal branding this whole time later on in my life, right? I just didn't have a word or a name for it. And basically, what it is yes, I've always been quite intentional about how people experience me, view me. And that was a build-up of all the experiences that I had coming from the media, working in behind the scenes of how do you develop and create brands. So I began to become quite sensitive to that. And because I started realizing that even from school, I didn't just want to be known as the kid who gets fetched in a taxi. So I had to give them other things to talk about. So I became more intentional about how I was performing at school, at sports, and everything else, so that I could have a different name and description to go by. So even as we grow as professionals, and especially with social media, what you post on social media or post on the weekend is not separate from who you are as a professional. And that's something that we talk about a lot in the workplace as well, that there's no distinction between, there's no separation. You can't say, oh, this is my personal platform, I'm going to post what I want, but I'm still, someone who's doing impactful work in the world. I think many of us have seen many examples of how people have done things in their personal capacities and still lost their jobs. You did something, it got posted online and it came back. We found the company you work for, we tagged them. The next day, the person loses their job or they lose, their employment. So it's very critical to take charge of your story. That's what personal branding is. You take charge of what you want people to know and see about you, right? And it's not to say you must lie and now be something that you're not. When we meet you, we're like, is this you? No, it's still being to have integrity in how you show up with your story, with your brand online, but be intentional, right? The intentionality doesn't mean you are being untruthful. It just means that you are taking charge of the story you are telling about you, about yourself, about your brand. For me, it definitely became quite intentional because I realized where I was and where I wanted to go, right? So I'm active on LinkedIn, as you've mentioned, on Instagram. Those are my key platforms. I stepped away from the other platforms because I was like, I don't know how they serve me. I'm on platforms and I engage on things that serve me, where I also feel comfortable on, right? An example, ex Twitter back in the day, for me felt very heavy and very negative, and like all I saw on my timeline was, trending topics around people's personal things that for me were not adding to my journey, even contributing to the conversation. I was like, these are not conversations I want to be a part of. So I focused on the channels that I believed were aligned to where I was going and what I wanted to do. So I zoned in on Instagram and on LinkedIn. And it's worked well for me because it has been quite intentional. And with actually my last two jobs, I got, so this is F&B. and even at Telkom currently, people knew me before I started at the businesses, but they knew me on my LinkedIn. They knew what I had to offer. They knew who I was based on my online footprint. So already I had a reputation that preceded me, and thankfully it was positive. But imagine if it wasn't, right? And how that would have worked against me in the professional space. So it's really critical to take charge of your brand, be intentional. And you also get people who say, no, I'm not going to post, I'm going to hide. Even that, just like they say, silence is also an answer. Not posting and not being out there again still contributes to your brand, because right now we have leaders, organizations are looking for leaders who are present, who are vocal, who can humanize a brand. And I remember in one of my previous organizations that I won't mention, there were two uh, candidates that were shortlisted for an executive role. So because of the position that I'm in digital, I was asked to do an online audit of these two individuals. One of the individuals was very present and active on their platform. One wasn't really. They just had a few posts on Facebook, not much happening across their platforms. But there was one comment and one post they had that was very derogatory. And the decision of who got that executive role was made based on that. And apart from the other person's lack of presence and derogatory comment, the other one was favored because they were active and they were present, and the business felt like we can trust this person, or we can see them, we can engage them. Another final example I'm going to give just regarding that, if you are, part of the crew that's saying, oh, I'm going to stay offline and, not engage at all, um, the Coldplay CEO, I think we all kind of saw it. Um, so he was caught on camera with another woman, and he was supposedly married and all of that. That he was not active on social media, but he trended, right? Even though he may not have had a profile, and that's happened to a lot of people. So not having a digital footprint still doesn't protect you from not being on the platforms or being talked about on the platforms. We will bring you to the platforms if we need to talk about you. We will find you if you need to be unpacked and talked about on the platforms. So I guess the point that I'm making is that your personal brand is truly a reflection of your life, who you are. So there is no separation with, oh, this is what I do behind closed doors versus what I show people. Whatever you do behind closed doors will still catch up. We'll find it. You will trend, even though you might not have a profile. But yeah, in closing, personal branding is critical in this world, and it's very important to get ahead of your story.
So, Boipelo, I really think you can go deeper with this personal branding thing, but I want us to have another session sometime in the year with you, because I think there's so much that you can unpack. I really want to get into that MBA. I want us to talk about being inspired. But for today, I want to leave everybody in suspense. We are going to end the interview here, because that's why we want you guys to come back and to invite more people the next time we have an interview. But Boipelo, this was just so inspiring. I've known you for quite a long time, but to be able to hear all this going on and what Boipelo was up to, for me, it's like, wow, geez, like this girl, this is just amazing. I think this for me just has been so amazing. So what we are going to do is, for about 5 or 10 minutes, I'm going to just request you to raise your hands. Anybody that wants to kind of just ask Boipelo a question or two regarding the interview, guys, and what she said, points of clarity, and so on. Don't ask anything outside of that because then you're going to take content away from our next session. So let's talk about just what she spoke about and I see that we've got Zanele Ngidi. Please go ahead, Zanele.
Thanks, Mochalefa. Hi, Boipelo. Thank you so much for sharing. Um, I think earlier you spoke about the failures and just how you are able to use those setbacks. But in a place where, you know, especially in corporate, you show up and you are in rooms, and of course, you have to feel like you do belong. But how do you deal with imposter syndrome where, you know, you're with a group of people? And I think even coming from, you know, similar backgrounds from the townships, etc., and you are going into these big roles and you apply and you, of course, can do it. But I always find that particularly in the Black professional community, I think we show up well and we're able to do it. Not that I don't think we can't, but you just can't shake that imposter syndrome that just always seems to follow you. And I was just curious on how have you been able to deal with that or manage that if you do suffer from it like I do, because I think it also just does affect your confidence and how you are able to put your hand up for, you know, bigger and better opportunities. Thanks.
No, thanks for the question. Very good question. And no, I don't discount myself from imposter syndrome, right? With every new space, with every new and bigger opportunity, there's always that feeling of like, yo, Mara, you know, can I really do this? And for me, honestly, the first word that comes to my mind is fight. Fight through it, right? And fighting can come in various ways because imposter syndrome targets a couple of areas of your life because it's not necessarily your capability. You are there because you're capable. First, it's mental, it's emotional, it's spiritual. So you kind of have to have like a 5-point plan on dealing with it on a daily, on a weekly, on a monthly. So for me, from a spiritual perspective, it's something I pray about. To be like, God, like this is how I'm feeling. I need to remind me who I am and who you created me to be. So that's how I kind of deal with it from a spiritual perspective. Mentally, sometimes I have to go back and read about myself, right? Go back to your CV, sit down with it and be like, oh, actually, I did that. You know, go back to your portfolio of work and evidence. Like those are active things you can do at the end of your workday, just to remind yourself that you actually are capable. These are things that you have done and are able to do. And then the third one is obviously relationally, when you are in those rooms and, you know, maybe you have people that talk more or are listened to more. You don't have to be the loudest in the room, but begin to work your way, work the room in identifying the relationships that are important that you need to cultivate and focus on that and close out the rest of the noise, right? That's most of the time with your manager, with the people that you potentially have to manage, because they need to be confident in you, right? So you start zoning in and focusing in how to improve those relationships. And then it's also surrounding yourself with people who are going to speak positively and speak life into you. And again, remind you who you are. Right. Because, like I say, for me, imposter syndrome is more of the softer experiences of life than actually, can I do this job? You know, you can do the job. You're just doubting yourself mentally, spiritually, and emotionally in those moments. And then wake up the next day and try again. Keep trying, you know, keep showing up. One tip that one of my mentors at CELC had asked me to do, this was a young white man who had a very big position. And I once said to him, and you know, we had a very good relationship. We started building this team together. I said to him, yo, I wish I had the confidence of that you have as a white professional male. And he was like, I get it, Boipelo, and you know, I've seen how you move in the business. Like you have so much potential. There's so much in you. You're good at what you do, but you don't show up like that. So then he gave me a task. So he was like, go to the canteen and ask for a free coffee. Do it for the whole week, this week, every day. Then I was like, no ways, I'm not doing that. And he was like, that's your task for the week. That's your KPI for the week. Go and do that. And basically, part of the exercise was him showing me that the worst that can happen in the world when you show up and ask and speak and open, your mouth and show yourself for who you are is getting a no. I went to the canteen the first day. I asked for a free coffee. Yeah, the barista kind of looked at me like, "Oh, you want a free coffee? Like, are you okay?" But he gave it to me, so I got it. The next day, when I was asking for the free coffee, and then a colleague behind me overheard me asking for the free coffee, and they offered to pay. So it was quite interesting how many different situations, me doing the same thing, brought a different experience. But all I had to do was to step out of my, shell and this thinking that, oh no, I could never do that. But look, I got free coffee and it was different situations that happened with each moment. So really, Zanele, it's identifying the areas where this thing is having an impact on you the most, spiritually, mentally, physically, relationally, and start doing things to deal with it at those levels, because it's not a blanket approach. It's not a blanket solution, right? That, oh, just wake up and listen to a podcast and you'll be fine. It's small little actions that you might have to take in your personal capacity based on what you are experiencing to help you deal with it on a daily until you get to a place where you're not confident to fully step into the space that you're in.
Yeah, thanks,
Coffee.
I'll ask for
Wow,
coffee
thank you,
tomorrow.
I think we should all do that.
Maybe
So
not
I'll
for you, for a new project. Who knows?
yeah.
No, thank you. Thanks for this, Mvula. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Zanele, for the question. So I'm just going to take the last two questions, guys, because I really want us to come back next time. So Daunyani, you can shoot your shot, and then Paul after that.
Thank you, Boipelo, and thanks to Abutum Jalefa about that. I must say, I'm that individual that said I've connected with you in the past years on LinkedIn, and you have made a lot of improvements as far as individually and career-wise, So I love that. That was very inspiring to see, Hence, I beat up myself to say, where was I when I see all this thing happening, you know? But yeah, two things that I just need for you without wasting any time. Would you say the first one? Would you say you have pivoted from political what Tony to communication specialist, as I see you, as well as a telecoms guru to be? The way I see your. The second one being as far as I just need this because you somebody who have invested a lot in academics, so probably with your research and stuff when you're doing your MBAs and any other certification, you could have met this. So I want to understand your take on AI and AGI and super intelligence as far as South Africa is concerned. I mean, what's your take on that? I know it's a very diverse. We might not even finish. It might need a new, yeah. But thank you so much.
Cool. No, thank you, Dariani. It's actually, so guys, I know that we've been LinkedIn friends for a very long time, for years actually, and this is the first time we're actually engaging through voice. So
That's
it's like
true. That's true.
so nice to meet you on Zoom.
Likewise.
Yeah, so have I pivoted? Interestingly, yes, the pivot has obviously happened in my work and job experiences, but for me, it's still underlying, it's still there, right? So I now work for an SOE. So there's an element now of still engaging with that world that I was, previously very interested in, where now I get to experience it from a corporatized perspective. So I don't think the things that you're passionate about actually ever leave you. You just evolve into different elements and different functions of it, but it always finds you. And I feel that's what's happened in my journey, where I'm like, maybe the next move for me after this could be really going into that space, but from an advisory perspective, right? Now I could be, I don't know, a minister's advisor, a president's advisor, based on my experience. So I could still find my way into politics without necessarily going the route that maybe I initially thought, but in a different way, given with all the experience that's led me there. So yeah, so that's how I'd answer that. And then on the second one, on AI and super intelligence. So AI, we already know, is the present and the future. I think for me as a professional now, I am spending a lot of time educating myself on AI, but most importantly, what it means for me as a professional right now, right? We're always hearing the conversations around how AI is going to take people's jobs. AI is writing, the copy, the scripts, the strategies for people. So for me right now as a professional is firstly understanding what this looks like in my context. One, the context from a national perspective. What does it mean for South Africa? What does it mean for Africa? And what I'm currently grappling with the most is contextualizing AI for our continent and for our country. We are understanding AI as ChatGPT, but there's so much more to that and how this is evolving and developing. So I'm spending a lot of time trying to understand how it's going to impact me, even at an individual and professional level. And how do I get ahead of that? Having an MBA right now, AI can give you an MBA in 2 minutes. Right. So I'm no longer differentiated based on what these tools and intelligence can do. So how do I then continue to, one, understand it, right? Because it's still quite a big concept that we talk about, but do we fully understand it in the context of what it means to me? How does AI change my home life, as an example? How does AI change my driving? And then how do I get to use AI in my day-to-day, in my work? How do I introduce AI to my teams? What does it look like in my space, right? So yeah, I think for me, answering that question without going too far and too deep is that right now, and I think for many of us in the room, we gotta spend a lot of time educating ourselves on AI. I'm actually currently reading a book by Dr. Mark Nasilla about basically AI.
Okay, awesome, Boipelo. Maybe you can share that book sometime later, the title and stuff. So, Paul, I think it's your cue. Paul will be the last person to ask questions, and then we can wrap up. Thank you, Paul.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mojalefa, and thank you so much, Boipelo, for an amazing interview. I think my question links to the part Boipelo spoke about the amazing opportunity, the powerful words from her father, where stating that you have that opportunity being in the room and so long, and as well how she used that to differentiate herself when either excelling at sports or academics and so long. So my question relates to when you take initiative in a workplace, the more senior you become, your managers want to see you being a self-starter, driving your own things as well. But depending on how you do that, you could either alienate yourself from what your manager's vision is, or you might be onto something that drives value for the business as well. So maybe my understanding or maybe some advice from Boipelo is how do you um, drive that fine line where you are being a self-starter, pushing the line, but you're not alienating yourself or being insubordinate in a way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a a popular question for overachievers. But thanks for the question, Paul. So here's how I personally deal with that, right? Or have dealt with that throughout my career. The key is not to downplay or dim your light, right? But it's to know where and how to shine your light, right? Because you have a light, but your light can't go everywhere all at once, right? So you need to kind of almost find a way to be like, cool, I'm gonna shift my light this way. It's like holding a torch, right? Your torch will go or light up the space and area that you are pointing it at. And in a professional space, it's about knowing where and how to shine that light, right? So that takes a lot of effort of you, obviously, building, knowing the business, knowing the relationships, understanding the dynamics. Fortunately or unfortunately, that's a big part of building your career, because you are in a space, you are in a system that has its rules, that has its ways of doing things. So you still have to respect that, but without necessarily dimming your light. And I always say that my job, over and above the impact I want to make in the business, is to make the people I work with and my team look good, right? So I won't do anything that is going to make anybody on my team feel less than, because our win, my win should be our win. So my goal when I enter the office is also, how do I make my manager look good today, right? By virtue of having that attitude and that position with what I do and how I show up, everybody wins, because then the person that manages me knows exactly what I'm capable of. And at any given moment, they'll be like, actually, I know exactly who can take this role, or who can take this, um, new thing to be accomplished at, within the business, because you've created trust. And at the end of the day, you're still dealing with humans regardless of what their titles are. And that's what I always say, that see the people you work with for the people and the human beings that they are. They still have insecurities, they still have imposter syndrome. So it's, you don't also, there's no value in making each other's imposter syndrome heightened in the workplace, right? Of course, we don't support bullying. We don't support behavior that is genuinely out of line, because that also exists and that happens. But in spaces where you do have reasonable people with just insecurities, then you just have to be smarter with how you shine your lights and how you show up to make sure that everybody around you wins.
Well said. What an amazing session, Boipelo. And I see here we've got Coach Amazement, who's an amazing leader as well, running his own program. There is no value in, then it cut short. Oh, Lord. Okay.
I can
Let me,
see it on my side. There is
yes.
no value in making each other's imposter syndromes heightened in the
Thank you. It's
workplace.
exactly what you said. So, but this has been an amazing session. So, guys, I couldn't go on to Facebook, but I did manage to get through to YouTube. I think it's Mojalefa Daniel Maluka. And I'm also on TikTok, and on TikTok, I'm becoming Dr. Lefa. Becoming Dr. Lefa. That's me on TikTok. And then we also have this group on WhatsApp called the Flourishing Career Initiative. I've put the WhatsApp link if you want to kind of get information about what I do and so on. I don't post that much. It is to advertise events like this on it, so you're not going to get interrupted a lot. So please join on that group as well, the Flourishing Career Initiative. I put the link on the chat. So please join that one. I'm requesting Boipelo to please come back. I think we'll have another session next month or so. We're not going to have a lot of sessions. It will probably be 10 or 11 in the year. But I think there's still so much to be mined from what Boipelo said. If you want career coaching, because I'm a career development coach and Boipelo is one of my clients, my phone number is 072 259 4397, or you can find me on LinkedIn and send me an inbox there. I should be able to respond, or any other of the social networks that are there. I want to read you because I do put out some of these small posters Um, there's one that I wrote which kind of speaks to Boipelo. Like when I look at this quote, I just think of the powerhouse called Boipelo. And I was hoping it would show. Oh yes, no, now I see what I did wrong. So here it goes, and I hope you guys will see it. I'm sharing it. Can you guys see it? Um,
It
Bibs,
looks
can you
like
see it?
it's yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
So basically, when I think about Boipelo, it's going public creates an opportunity for others to invest in you. And for me,
Mm.
Boipelo's story has been just about going public. The opportunities that Boipelo has received, the opportunities that Boipelo has capitalized on, because for me, it's been about that, has been an issue of going public. So as we leave this session, guys, our task is to go public. That's me as a career coach giving you an assignment, because I wouldn't be a good career coach if I didn't give you an assignment. How are you going to go public? What steps are you going to take to go public? Because the whole journey of career development is going public. Going out there to say, look, like a public organization, I want people to invest. So what do? I need to make those steps. And if you struggle, we are available. You can get through and get some much needed help there. So, guys, it's been an amazing night. And Boipelo, as our guest, you were so incredible. We really do appreciate you taking your time to, and how you even went all out to answering the questions. Really, thank you so much. I think our lives are embittered by what you have shared for us. So, guys, have a good night and God bless. And thank you, Boipelo. Any parting shots? And we can be off.
No, thank you so much for having me. This was great. I look forward to the next sessions. I think we don't have enough of these conversations, and there's so much that we get to learn from each other and mine from each other. So it was truly an honor to be here and to have you guys stay for the entire session. Going out there when you wake up tomorrow morning, remember that you are worth it and you deserve to be in those spaces. So, just start creating moments for yourself to know that and to show up accordingly and win, because we all gotta win. Thank you.
Thank you, Boipelo. I think everyone, you can just say good night, good night, good night. If it's good morning, you can do that as you exit. Thank you guys so much, and God bless. Hey, cheers.
Thank you all.
Bye, guys.
Have a good
Bye.
evening. Bye.
Bye, guys. Bye, bye, bye.
Bye.
Good night.